Get a very collective moment of silence for our first team to get outed in the group stage. DJ, if I could get the music to come down temporarily, we'll bring it back in a second. Can I get a full couple of seconds of silence for the first team knocked out in the group stage, the Japanese CYCLOPS Athlete Gaming? Thank you very much. I'm sure for the YouTube audience, that was probably where to look at. Hello, welcome back to the Invitational Post-Show, Day 5. Yeah, that's the only real way that I thought to enter this thing. This is Jesse. My name's Jacob. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. We had some fantastic games today, some really fun ones. Obviously, the implications were very extreme. Things were kind of all over the place, and as the day worked out, we had suspenseful games after suspenseful games. It was a good day.
And even CYCLOPS, in their path out of the Sixth Invitational, still had to make us believe that there was a way that they could stay alive. They had 2 OT games, both of them on Cafe, both of them went to 15 rounds, and there was a lot of other OT madness that happened throughout the day. The general observation, I think, was from like Cap and Fluke, and then I tweeted about it later. If games don't go 7-4 at this year's SI, they're probably going all the way to 8-7. There's just no in between.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want from SI, right? Like, how many close games did we get today? If it was 7-5 or it was overtime, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the mainstream, 7, 8, 9, 10 more. Well, 10 total if you include the B stream. That's incredible, dude. And it just shows, like, how close and how great the competition can be at SI. I think this really lived up for the final day of Group A. And, yeah, I think we got a good shot at it, Jacob.
We did, but standings real quick so we can see where we hit for the top 4, the bottom 4, and then, sorry, top 4, bottom 5, and then the last team on the day, if we can get those whipped up here. First 2 teams with the guaranteed best record in the group stage cannot be topped by any teams in Group B. Team Empire and BDS Esport both at 8-1. Already, that is an insane line by itself, but then you factor in that Empire also still had some close matchups throughout the day, and they also defeated BDS. The only loss BDS had this entire group stage was to Team Empire, and they sit just above them.
Yeah, only 1 loss from both of these squads. Empire losing to Dark Zero, who couldn't quite finish as high. Liquid and FaZe Clan did clutch it out to make it to that top 4. Liquid were kind of a shoo-in. Like, they seemed pretty confident. They weren't 100% until a little bit later in the day, but they did get it. FaZe Clan and Team 1, that came down to the very last game of the day, where it was Team 1 versus Liquid. If Team 1 had won that one, they would have tied with FaZe Clan, and through some really intricate tie breaks, actually, Team 1 would have ended up on top. But none of that mattered. FaZe Clan ended up winning, and they just win off of points instead. Or Team Liquid won, and FaZe Clan went off of points, I should say. And yeah, we get 2 more Latin American teams overrepresented in the top 4, and that means that there's nobody from North America to show up. It's all EU and LATAM in the top 4.
Yeah, it was going to be kind of a steep hill to climb for Dark Zero to make it in that top 4.
Yeah.
But for both you and me, real quick, just for our top 4 predictions, the only one that I got wrong was Empire, and I did think that Dark Zero was going to be joining BDS, Liquid, and FaZe Clan in that top 4. How similar or dissimilar was this from your top 4?
That was my exact top 4. I had BDS, Liquid, FaZe, and Dark Zero.
Okay.
Not in that order, but...
No, obviously not.
And Team Empire was like such a shock, you know? I mean, nobody had this team top 4. Empire played like garbage in the regular season, and then they come out and they're playing amazing. Like, Joystick has turned it on, and it's awesome to see, because this is a historic team in Siege. You know, this team at one point in time was far and away, no questions asked, the best team in all of Rainbow Six. And then, you know, they fell off. They got worse and worse throughout the years. We kind of realized that, never mind, this team's not good anymore. Now they're looking back on top. They look like they could win this thing, Jacob.
Yeah, they definitely did. Though the fact that we sit with the standings where they are at, I think is a pretty damn good indicator for what the groups are going to offer us from a playoffs perspective. Sorry, what the playoffs are going to offer us once we get to those best of 3 perspectives, because this only kind of tells half the story for how teams can perform overall. At the very bottom, though, we had a scare. We were looking at G2 and CYCLOPS as the 2 teams that we were very concerned about overall. So the thing that we're trying to understand is whether one of the two APAC teams were going to go out or if G2 was going to go out in groups. And it eventually turned into G2 finding a way to like surge back, get some a little bit more late momentum under their feet. So it turned into which of the two APAC teams was going to get knocked out. And it came down ultimately to CYCLOPS only needing one final round against BDS to knock Cloud9 out of contention. But BDS, proving why they're one of the best teams in the world, still came back and won that one. And CYCLOPS, at the end of the day, their fate was in their hands and they just couldn't seal the playoffs for themselves.
Yeah, I thought even at the beginning of the day, like I think G2 started the day in last, and I think it's I think they always kind of were the favorites to jump out because they had some easier games. But you know, good on them to pull themselves out of there, and then obviously unfortunate for Japan, CYCLOPS fall, the only team eliminated from Group A.
Well, we got a crap ton of these that we got to get through, so we will try to see if we can't speed run through these adequately. Apologies if the music was a little bit too loud beforehand. There's just a lot of stuff that we got to talk about in the standings before we get to these individual games. But a lot of them there are, and you went back with A stream, I stuck with B stream, and you got a banger to start the day off. I'm actually kind of jealous.
Yeah, we got BDS versus Cloud9 to start it. This one went all 12 rounds. We had, I mean, I think this one, like everybody thought was going to go to BDS pretty easily, but Cloud9 just, they played really well. I think at the very start for this first half, we saw BDS attacking. They won so many just off of running and gunning, and what I watched these games with hot and cold. What we realized was like, even the rounds that Dark or the BDS don't look like they're going to win, they're so consistent at winning those ones anyways, right? Because even the rounds where they lose the early game, they can't get the clear off, they still manage to run in, they get their kills, and it's really impressive how just informed they are at all times. And then, I felt like on that second half, BDS were over peaking a little bit on defense. It felt like Cloud9 were getting punished by that. Their aggression was hard to contain. Eventually, Cloud9 kind of realized, hey, they're just peeking us, we can hold angles. But it was a little bit too late by that point. BDS only needed to win one more round, and they clinched that one out. I think BDS, particularly on defense, did show up and play well. But it was kind of a scrappy game. I think BDS started the day quite slow and sloppy, but as the day went on, they played way better.
We saw this graphic, by the way, also mentions that it was Villa. There we go. It was actually Clubhouse. And the other game that Cloud9 won against FaZe Clan earlier 2 days ago was also on Clubhouse. And I was kind of curious if there was anything about like the way that Cloud9 leaned into that map more specifically that you liked that kind of fell short. What was the big catalyst in this one for why Cloud9 couldn't win on Club again?
I think it was just like how caught off guard they were constantly getting by BDS's aggression. Like, I don't know, there were a couple of these attacks where it would be like a last second C4 and there was like really weird just flanks from both teams going on. Some of the pushes were just like kind of chaotic. Yeah, like they'd be pushing in from Jacuzzi on like a gym hold, and then they'd like last second just run at the guy's CC to try to, clear out those players when they really didn't need to. And then like I think the utility clear was a little bit poorer by C9. There was better gunfights on the side of BDS. Overall, I think it was just a bit sloppy on that side. Also sloppy on the other side for Cloud9 though. Like BDS's attacks were also quite bad.
And this was also a game that we were looking at that had massive implications for C9. Obviously, I don't think they had enough wins to really have their spot secured at this point. So BDS were already almost a lock, I think, for top 4 at this point so far. When the group stage began, they were incredibly close, and Cloud9 were already underperforming maybe performing a little bit more to the way that we kind of expected APAC teams to do through this tournament so far. But the problem was their spot definitely was not secure. And even though this game was close, it still means, we don't see overtime rules. There's no discrepancy in terms of overall rounds won, especially when you have to worry about head-to-head tiebreakers. So for C9, this game mattered a lot, and not being able to pull it out with Harper, Static, and Nova all having those performances. Like Envy and Shyle are going to go off and do their own thing, but Static, he took a while to kind of show up today. It took until they were on Cafe a couple of games later for him to really have a good day. But I swear, if those 3 players are able to pop off a little bit more, maybe Cloud9 aren't waiting until one round at the very end of the playday to decide whether or not they're going home from SI.
Yeah, I mean, just like take a moment to look at the other games Cloud9 played today. 7-5 lost to BDS. Okay, that hurts, you know, but they almost got it.
Yeah.
Then they go on 7-5 loss to G2. Okay, another one, kind of a heartbreaker, but they could have won that. 8-7 loss to Dark Zero. My God, Cloud9, close it a game, please. This was a stressful day for Cloud9. It seemed like they were winning rounds. They almost clutched out, but they had 3 games where they went either max overtime or max regular time, and they didn't win a single time, Jacob. This was extremely close for Cloud9 or for CYCLOPS winning it out.
Yeah, I was worried. Everyone in Asia was worried, but one of those 2 teams had to get knocked out just because of placements at the end of the day. So things being what they are, it was just Cloud9 giving themselves their own heart attack. They could have made it easier on themselves, but they didn't, and they had to wait until that very last round. All right. Speaking of CYCLOPS, the team that was trying so desperately to hang in there, if we can move on to the second game, DJ. And by the way, Ferme is not with us. He's currently producing North American Challenge League as we speak, so please give a warm welcome to our good friend DJ Dextros, who also does, he used to be a producer on CL, but now does replay operation, and he kindly offered to step in and help us out with production on the day. So if something's a little bit amiss, we're getting it fixed on our end, but thank you, DJ, for coming in on this one. Thank you in chat. Give the producer appreciation. He's missed. All right. Cloud9 had their game, but CYCLOPS also had to start the day against somebody. They had to play BDS later, but they started against Empire. They had the probably hardest schedule of any team throughout the course of the day. A couple of interesting bans off the bat. CYCLOPS said, we don't want Joystick playing Jackal, and Empire said, we don't want Edison playing Monty. That's just how this game is going to progress. So both of them kind of have one signature operator taken off the board during the ban phase. CAG played pretty erratic, I think it is the way that I want to describe it. It was a lot of floor rotations that Empire couldn't track very early on. I want to say it was like a 3-1 lead at some point for CYCLOPS as Empire tried to figure out exactly how they wanted to shift their operator lineup around. It forced Empire to make a lot of utility adaptations, which for Empire to see them do things against their usual grain and not stick to a normal formula is kind of cool for them, because it's like they have a very old style of playing Siege where they probably don't need to worry about making those adaptations on the fly, but they did, and that was consistent throughout the day, which was a really nice thing to see. They were bringing an op lineup for some rounds that almost made it seem like they were playing on Coastline. It was Lion, Dokkaebi, single hard breach plus 1 Ash, and I'm like, are we sure they're playing on the right map? But ultimately they did make it work. They had to swap the Lion off for an IQ a couple of times, but again, that's just that adaptation coming into the fray because of how much gadgetry CAG brought on defense. But I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, when you're swapping, when you're trying to make your lineup more normal by swapping into an IQ, that's a pretty good sign that things are kind of going astray with that operator lineup. But hey, I mean, yeah, sometimes that stuff could absolutely work, and I think particularly CYCLOPS do force a very odd game. The way that they play the game not only like is extremely different from every other team in the tournament, but it also like can force your opponents to play really different. You know,
yeah,
Empire don't want to walk in a cafe and ban Monty, but they're playing CAG, so they've gotta, right? And that's just what we see, you know, in the operator picks as well. That gets reflected from Empire when they have to pick operators such as maybe Line Doke. These guys shut down some of that aggression. So, yeah, I didn't get to watch this one, or at least if I do, if I was able to watch this one, it was too late or too early in the morning for me to remember it. But a very close game, and I'm almost a little bit worried from Empire. Obviously, I think this should be looked at like as an accomplishment from Cloud9 because, or not Cloud9, excuse me, CYCLOPS. But I do think this is a little bit shaky for Empire. Just the fact that they're going so close against a team that they should be far above. I mean, at the end of the day, this was what, the best team versus the worst team in the groups by final standing. So, you know, one round goes differently and the entire group ends out a different way. I think that's not amazing for Empire, but at the end of the day, I guess they are still at the top of the group. Maybe we shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't get too worried yet.
Yeah, it was still a heartbreaker for CYCLOPS because of a couple of different things. It was always on their attack. Their defenses did look solid, even if they did kind of have that erratic play style that I mentioned. I decided to resurrect the Ying Glass meta for, I think, about 4 or 3 rounds on their attacking half. Good idea in theory. I think they're able to use it properly because the thing they were mostly using it for were skylight drops if Empire were defending on top floor. That can work. In a couple of situations it can, except every time for specifically Ying Glass, it failed every time. And then we had a rehost like 3 to 4 rounds into their own attacking half, and then they go, okay, we probably need to play this a little bit more normal. They opt to swap the Ying and the Glass out. They make sure they have some soft breaches. They're playing top down. They're covering their flanks. They're droning appropriately. They've managed to force OT. So we get into 7-7. Last round is on Kitchen, so just envision this with me. They open up Freezer. Everyone else from Empire is either off back on the opposite part of the bomb site or roaming someplace else. CAG almost gets surprised by the fact that they have Freezer and site by bunker completely to themselves. They rush in, site empty, get the case down, and as soon as they do, they back up and there's no one holding cross angles or anything. There's no one preventing the diffuser from going diffused. So then someone from Empire comes over, starts diffusing it, and they have cover looking all the way down into the freezer hole. There's nobody playing up top like a vertical hold down to watch the case from above, and Empire win despite there being a 5-on-5 post plant on site with nobody around bunker. They still pull a defuse out of their ass in the middle of the site with nobody on CAG watching. That is the kind of heartbreak that we're talking about. They were this close, literally this close away from greatness, and let one small crossfire slip away from them. It sucked.
Yeah, I do think the way that Cyclops do like to bring out this glass is they played it a lot in the APAC regular season. Again, from the games I was able to VOD review from Cyclops, I saw this multiple times, bringing that glass. Usually they brought it with a Monty, so the Monty ban here probably affecting the lineup a little bit. But this is in their playbook. CAC have a very large playbook, and so I'm not surprised to see this. I'm not a fan of it personally. I don't think I've ever seen the glass work super well. I think there was a game on your stream where there was some cool glass play. Maybe we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, unfortunately for Cyclops, they couldn't close this one out. This is in hindsight, this one hurts a lot.
Yup. Cyclops would do this twice on the day, which is ultimately the thing that I hate the most about it. They would do it against both of the teams that were 8-1 from EU in their group too. It just, man, people were rooting really hard for CAG throughout the day, and they still couldn't do anything. It blows. It really does. Yeah.
Moving on, though, I mean, BDS versus Liquid is the next game that I had on the B stream, or on the A stream, even. And this one was tough. You ever watch a team get 7-0'd by 7-0'd defending Oregon? I have twice now in groups of SI.
Yike.
First it was Parabellum getting 7-0'd by Auction defending on Oregon, and then it's Liquid getting 7-0'd by BDS defending on Oregon.
Do you mean 6-0 on the defense? Because they did pull one round back.
I just can't speak. You're right.
No, I just wanted to double check.
6-0 on defense is what I'm talking about here. They got 6-0'd, then Liquid got around. They attacked on Laundry, and then they ran Dorms on the side of BDS and won the game 7-1. So yeah, a 6-0 attacking half for BDS is pretty incredible. They were really they were walking in and getting their kills. Constantly they had man advantage. I don't know if there was a single time that Team Liquid were able to get that pick up the advantage. They were really doing a good job getting those picks early and playing off of those picks. One kill would always lead to another and another and another, and it would spiral time and time again. Things would spiral out of control. At first, it felt like Team Liquid were almost too scared. Maybe they were a bit tired in the morning. I don't know exactly what it was, but BDS would walk into site and they'd be on Laundry, for example, right? And any way that you walk into that basement, there are ways that you can get shot. You're walking down tower stairs, you're walking down freezer, you're walking down Laundry. There's a lot of different angles that you can take a fight from, and you don't have a lot of cover. And Liquid just never really wanted to swing. It felt like a lot of these attacking rounds, BDS were in the bomb site before Liquid could even realize what's going on. So this was a tough game. You can see a lot of the red there on the side of Team Liquid. I think there was some fantastic plays from everybody on BDS. Particularly, I think Alems had the biggest play. He just got a 4K. He walked down Attic. Nobody stopped. No. They did try to stop him. They swung him 2 guys swung Attic, and Alems just killed both of them because he's a monster. Got 2K and then got 2 more back in round number 2. I think that was probably the biggest play that I saw coming out there. I mean, Shaika was ridiculous. Yeah, Ryan Shiro's topping it off on the kill feed. 100 cost for 2 of these players. It was a slaughter, Jacob.
This is a match on paper I was really, really looking forward to, and probably thought there would be like a lot of VOD potential in something like this. But ultimately, a clinic from BDS, which I don't necessarily mind, but it's still the top team from Latin America, and the expectations for this one were obviously way higher than they were. So. Where's the disconnect? The fact that, okay, I'm looking at all the stats and I'm just seeing so much red on Liquid's side that PSK has a 0% headshot rating, which obviously doesn't look great. But everyone on BDS with a 1.14 or higher, not even just a 1.0, like that even from like an overall round impact level is freaking insane.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 7-1. Like, I feel like part of the time it was the entry players like going in, getting their kills, so they would have like a good entry, or they would have a good rating, and then like they would lose a couple, like they would get traded out, and then like but then the backup players would come in and they would get their frags, right? So it wasn't like one person carrying. This was like, you know, everybody on BDS stepped up, was hitting their shots, and on the other side, Paulu stepped up, hit a couple of shots, and nobody else on Team Liquid decided to play that game. So yeah, a lot of. I wish there was more to break down, right? But a lot of that was BDS walking in, winning gunfights, and it doesn't really go deeper than that, unfortunately.
And there is something to be said for the Brazilian playstyle of always playing very emotionally. And, you know, if you're getting like a lot of rounds gotten on you in quick succession and there's not really much of an opportunity for a comeback, especially if the half goes 6-0, then I'm pretty sure, you know, your mental state is tanked enough that the possibility for a comeback relies solely on how you're able to handle your own mentality at that moment. But if you're down that hard, I can see how insurmountable of a mountain that is to climb.
I mean, it's not even 6-0, Jay, but 6-0 defending on Oregon. That is the most one-sided like map for any given side. Like, no other map is more attacker or defender sided. Oregon is the most lopsided map in the pool, and it's lopsided towards the defenders. So when you get 0 defending rounds, you lose, right? I mean, that's just how it goes. So Liquid, really tough start there, but they got better as the day went on, and I think we'll see a little bit more of that later.
Well, that's an F in chat for Liquid's chances, but ultimately they were still fine. They still placed in top 4. Not worried about them really in the slightest. And they will be A-okay. So we move from one Cyclops game against Empire to their second game on the day, which, believe it or not, is another win against a Latin American team. The only 2 wins that Cyclops were able to scrape by were wins against Liquid on Consulate, and then here against Team 1 on Oregon, which was by and large a clinic again against a Latin American team. Kills happened like almost in a funnel. Like they were really, really quick. So it almost felt like if CAG were getting 1 kill, then like the next 2 or 3 or even 4 were all going to happen like in very quick succession, based on where they were just trying to swarm around Team 1 as they collapsed onto the bomb site. It was most rounds, it was an utter slaughter is the note that I took down. The biggest thing for me is overall the attacking discipline from CAG seemed like it was far better than it was against Empire. Maybe it's just the idea of facing the Russian machine strikes a little bit more fear than facing one of the 4 Latin American teams in your group, because they had a lot more proper post planning, proper positioning. Their trades were kind of lining up where they shouldn't have. CAG, I read a Reddit comment, I think it was earlier today, saying that they either play masterfully or they look like bots, and I kind of can't disagree with that solely because of like the scores that their games have had, but this was where they didn't play like bots. Most of them, if we pull the stats up, DJ, I think most of them did have a pretty damn superior stat line overall, with the exception of Anderton, because again the Ying didn't really seem like it was working out. We did have another Monty band teams who played Cyclops simply were having none of the shield play and they didn't rock any blitz, but it was way calmer. It was less experimentation from CAG as they worked through their attacks and their defenses. They did like to favor an Ella in some cases, but that was probably the only really whack thing that I saw, aside from Black Ray playing mostly Capcan on defense. Everything else seemed pretty damn standard. And I want to say that in the ban phase, this was also something that Cyclops came out ahead on, because coming into this game, Team 1 were only 1-2 on Oregon before this game, and neither of those losses were very close. Like, it was one of them, I want to say it was against BDS, and that was like a 7-4, and the other one they lost 7-3. This is the second time that they've lost this map in this kind of fashion. So credit where credit is due. It seemed like it was pretty damn well scouted from Cyclops the whole way, and they got a dub and set them on the path to thinking maybe they'll have a chance to survive groups.
I think this was a game where I think the upset potential was greatest for CYCLOPS. I don't think Team 1 was their easiest opponent, but I think Team 1 playstyle-wise matches up really well against Cloud9, or sorry, really poorly. And we're talking about CYCLOPS, not Cloud9. I gotta get my team straight. So, like, CYCLOPS really do play like a very weird, a very crazy, style of gameplay. And I think Team 1, in Brazil, they're a very slow, structured team, right? And so when you have that very structured, sort of slow pace, like, cautious approach against a team that just like throws candelas at you and will just jump out windows and will just play like monkeys sometimes, not necessarily in a bad way, then hey, that's gonna mess you up. And I think Team 1 are a little bit susceptible to that style of play. So this one, it is surprising I didn't pick Team 1 to lose this, but I think in retrospect it does make sense looking at their play styles. If CYCLOPS were gonna get a kill or get a round over anybody, I think it makes sense that they managed to get a solid game over Team 1.
Yep, I do agree on the upset potential point, and CAG just, I don't really know what it is. Like, both of the wins that they had weren't even like forced overtime, which is the big trend from the groups. It was two teams from Brazil who I don't think they have very similar playstyles overall, other than like the region that they come from. It was Liquid and it was Consulate. Yeah, which is kind of where we made the assumption, don't take APAC teams to Consulate. But CAG obviously already had a very good record there, and it just kind of seemed like they took Liquid out of the fight very early on. And that was a pretty similar case here because of the mass advantage round-wise that CYCLOPS were able to get out to very, very early. And Team 1 does typically play slower, I think, than teams like FaZe Clan or Liquid do on the reg with this new roster. The old Team 1 that's now MIBR didn't do it the same way, but these guys don't play as fast and heavy, so it was something that CYCLOPS could recognize, take full advantage of, just keep their drones flowing. They did really, really good this game, and I wish they could have had this kind of style performance that they had all day throughout the rest of the tournament, because this was their one win, but their two losses, even still, aside from a couple of mistakes, looked very, very good overall. So,
yeah, good to see. Obviously, didn't matter in the end, but this was the one that, like, looking at the standings and following the standings, this was the one that I believe pushed G2 into last momentarily, and was the one where we thought, okay, now CYCLOPS are in kind of the driver's seat, right? But obviously, that's not the way it ended out by the end of the day.
I'm going to say, speaking of G2, it was the combination of the CYCLOPS win and then their next game that forced them down, right? Yeah,
this one, I think, like, G2, again, like, once they got put into last place, they knew they had still 3 games to play today, and this was probably going to be the hardest one, so I don't think it was a disaster when they lost this.
Do we really have this much Oregon, by the way, today? Did you get a whole bunch of games on stream?
I would finish watching my game, I'd go watch B stream, be like, great, I love Oregon. Speaking of Oregon, your team Liquid, they just lost 7-1 on Oregon. You're sitting there, you're like, which map should we go to? Oregon. And so Houghton and I, we were a little confused by this pick. We're like, come on, Liquid. There's no way your map pool is this trash. But they brought it out, and they just played so much better. Like, they did stuff that they did not do when they played against BDS. They had different strats that they were running. They were, being way more aggressive on the defense. They were willing to peek stuff. They were playing it pretty well. I would say sometimes even, like, they over-peaked a couple of rounds, and G2 was able to punish them, like, on that one attacking round that G2 was actually able to get. This time, instead of getting 0-6, Liquid went 5-1 on their defensive halves. I thought that they had some really great plays. Palu got his ace of the game, let's go. So that was fun. Nesk had some really nice plays. I think we had stats up here, and we can see, Palu and Nesk, that basically sums it up. They played really, really well in sort of that second quarter of the game, and then when they swapped halves, I think they started to bring it back a little bit on the side of G2. They got 2 in a row as they started their defenses. I do think, again, maybe the mental game got to G2 a little bit. They were attacking on Oregon, so going down maybe like 5-1, even like 4-1, that wasn't the end of the world for them, but especially when they started clawing back. But I think once they started losing at the ends there, maybe things started to slip. Uno had a huge 4K the very first round of their defenses, and that's sort of reflected in the stats here. That's why he went so great on his KD and everything. Was the top player for the squad. Liquid rocking a lot of blitz. Is that represented? Yeah, sexy kick on the blitz. Not working, in my opinion. They really weren't finding success with it. They tried it on Laundry. They tried it on Dorms. Laundry was like okay, but Dorms really did like fall apart. The blitz went really deep. They didn't really focus on the plant. I didn't love that take from Liquid, but they did eventually get off of it. I think, I believe they got off of it. I could be misremembering, but they played much better the last couple of rounds. There were some heartbreakers. There was a meeting defense where Kayak literally was in the smoke with the guy planting the kit, and he was shooting all around, and he like finally got to the spot where it was, and then his gun ran out of ammo, so he pulls out his pistol, and his pistol has to reload too before he can shoot it. Kit goes down, he dies before he even gets can do his job, and then G2 lost that round, and that was the beginning of the end. I mean, that was the start to Liquid's momentum building back up. They then won the round after that. I thought that G2 had a bit of a poor setup on Laundry. They kept bringing Valk, which is something that on Laundry I don't really see the value of. Houghton was talking about this as well. He's just sort of didn't really understand the strat that G2 were trying to bring. And when Uno wasn't hitting 4Ks, it was hard to hold for G2. So overall, really good improvement by Liquid, and I was kind of surprised how different they seemed to play the two organs and how much better they played against G2 than they did BDS. We joked that maybe they were like they were saving strats against BDS so that they could come out and slam G2. I don't think that's actually what happened, but yeah, it felt like that.
Something that I did see in the stat sheet, which also just kind of complements what we saw from individual players, we had 3 plants the entire game. 2 of them came from Kayak. One of them I want to say came from Sexy Cake, though I don't know if it was around where he was playing Blitz or not. But it's a game where we see players like Paula and Nesk pop off for G2. If anyone pops up, it's going to be Citizen and probably Kanto because of the roles that they play. But it was Uno who was also having a much better day, surging above both Uno and Kanto, and it just kind of seemed like, simply because of the players involved, you knew this was going to be more frag heavy and probably a little bit less objective focused because there were only 3 rounds that you were in a post plant the whole time, which I know for a 10-round game still makes up about 33% of the rounds played, but still it was not something that they were really emphasizing for either team for their attacks in terms of getting the case down, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the attack just kind of got slammed. Like G2 in the first half kind of got shit on. Like they didn't get the chance to plant. Whether they wanted to go for kills or for plant didn't really matter. The round was usually over before they got to that point. And then in the second half, like Liquid did, they lost some early ones. Then they planted. That was the meeting. I think Liquid's one plant would have been the meeting round where they planted in the smoke with Kayak in the smoke. So yeah, I think it was definitely more of an aggressive play. I think Liquids, unlike their game against BDS, were getting into engagements and allowing fights to happen before we really got to that situation where plants would happen. So yeah, that was cool from Liquid to go for the switch up, and yeah, definitely a change in styles for sure.
All right, good stuff. We'll see if we can't go through some of these a little bit faster because a lot of them did seem to be LATAM versus LATAM matchups as the day progressed. But for my case, we got Team 1's loss to CAG out of the way, and they were trying to find a way to bounce back, but they couldn't because this was Coastline. This was against FaZe, and it's 2 Brazilian teams on Coastline. You knew this was going to come all the way down to the wire. A couple of observations. It was mostly roam. There wasn't a whole bunch of anchor play because look at the bans. Smoke is gone. They banned Smoke, not necessarily specifically against Alamau, even though he has been playing an exemplary sledge through groups thus far. FaZe opted to also knock the Ash out of play, which might have been a direct counter to KDS because that was what he's been playing through the tournament as well. But it did kind of force Team 1 to make adaptations. It forced both teams really to figure out what they were going to do without having a Smoke in play. You can't do a whole bunch of basic stuff. You can't use it to force somebody off of an Aqua plant if you're sitting behind Couch Wall. You can't use it to force anyone off of planning right in, at the service door if you're defending on kitchen service. There's a lot of things you can't do with a Smoke where you probably still want to have an anchor operator like this. If it's not her, then it's probably somebody like a Mira who did see a pretty fair amount of play because she was not banned in this map. But it was a very, very textbook slobber knocker, for lack of a better term. It was all flanks, roams, clearing post-plant timing, and a lot of verticality, or about as much as you can have for a map that only has 2 floors. And yeah, it was really interesting just to see how teams were trying to adapt to area denial without that Smoke ban, because I think the only one who really brought something that can count as area denial was Levy, who was banning Maestro, and then sometimes someone brought a Goyo, and that was probably the only real thing that we saw in terms of area denial this entire game, and it went all the way down to the wire.
Was this the game? Maybe I'm misremembering, but I believe I didn't get to see this play, but Houghton told me about it,
Which one?
He had the game open on his monitor, where I think it was FaZe Clan. They had to take hookah, and they put a glass on big window and smoked around it so that they could plant right under the big window.
Maybe
just smoked everything. They brought like 4 smokes. They brought like a jackal and a glass, sat on the window on like upside down rappel, and just like let the guy plant by the big window, and then the glass just like slammed anybody who wanted to come through the smoke to stop it. I thought that was pretty ingenious. If that was this game, I could be wrong on that.
I am perfectly honest with you. This was when I was crazy tired, so it's totally possible that I might have missed a play. Did he say if it was FaZe or if it was one who brought the class? Or
because I can FaZe. I thought it was FaZe that brought class.
Let me scrounge for it real quick and see what I can find. They the weirdest thing that I think FaZe probably brought out here was Amaru, though then again, the clip the demo showed us of that one Amaru play on Villa, it was also Astro, so it kind of seems to be something that they will bring out at very intermittent situational moments, if anything, but that was probably like the oddest operator that they brought. He swapped back off of it. He was back on Ace for like the entire rest of the game, and Bullet was playing Twitch, which was probably the only thing that can technically be considered off meta. Right. And just as I'm scrubbing through this, I don't know if it was this one. It might have been a different game earlier for FaZe Clan for the glass play, unless I'm crazy and stream can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know. They're saying Souls was on glass. They're saying he planted around a big window.
Let me see. I do want to find this if that's the case, because that does sound ingenious.
Chat's saying it was this one. I thought it was this one because I don't think FaZe played another Coastline game today. Pretty sure it was FaZe on Coast.
FaZe, let's see. We had FaZe versus Empire on Oregon, and then we had FaZe versus Furia on Villa, so this would have been the only time that they played Coastline. You were not wrong.
Round 7, chat's saying. Jacob.
They're saying round 7. All right, cool. Let's find this.
That's what they're telling us. And I haven't seen this clip, by the way. I just had it described to me.
Oh, yeah. I see it. I see it.
Fault.
Yeah, I'll be sure to not blame you, DJ. If we wanna snag this, I'm scrolling to round 7, round 6. Let's see. Okay, so they're planting. I can tell already with only a couple seconds left. Let's see how this one plays out real quick.
Yeah, if they don't plant till later, we can probably skip ahead a little bit. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the early round is like. I remember watching actually the very end of this one because our game ended, and I thought Bullet was getting a lot of use out of that Twitch, especially on that hookah site. It can be really valuable.
Yeah, for sure, and especially considering like I think Maestro was brought most of the time by Levy in this matchup, so they just had to be aware of it. Here, okay, so smoke plant.
Yeah.
Yep, he's already in. Glaz is right there on the window at the same time. Warden does activate, but he activates way too late. So they had the capacity to stop it. Just poor timing on Team 1's part with a Warden right there in the way. That blows, dude. Good execute, though.
That's a cool play, though. That's a really cool play.
For real. That is really dope.
I like that.
All right. Off of this one, 8-7 banger, moving over to one that doesn't have a LATAM team for once. Which one did you have?
I had Gamers 2 versus Cloud9. This one was fun. We started off with Cloud9 on the defense. We played Cafe, of course, and it was a 3-3 split on that first half. Cloud9 defending. Definitely felt like G2 had some bad play at the start. You know, some of these attacks weren't amazing. There were some really aggressive stuff being brought by Cloud9. Some spawn peeking, of course. MB Taylor on the Oryx was definitely a menace. I felt like sometimes G2's time management took like a long time to decide like what they wanted to do. There was like they were really bad at clearing out bakery on one of their kitchen attacks. They like did not do a very efficient job at all. And like even if they had cleared out bakery, like the wall was closed and they didn't have a Maverick. So like I know we were questioning why they even attacked on that side of the map at all. There were some questionable plays I'd say by G2, but they did manage to eke out a 3-3 split. Kanto got a 1v1 at the very start. It was a pretty sick play. Harper almost got an ace to save the round, but Kanto was better at the very end and stopped C9 in the tracks back in round number 1. And then they swapped sides, and we got over to G2's defensive half. Yeah, Kanto top fragging does not
1.75. Good lord.
Kanto kept it going on defense, let me just say. They were like defending on multiple different rounds, and there was a kitchen defense where Kanto was just chilling in coffee, killing everybody as they ran on in. There was a reading defense, which got really weird. G2 played like strange as hell operators. Cloud9 were all over the place, getting all the kills, but then Kanto like clutched it once again in round number 9, trying to defend on Valk and reading. So there were weird ones. And then at the end, Throw 2 didn't show up, but Throw 9 did. Round 11 was a kitchen defense by G2, and the guy just gets off plant. He's planting coffee. It's a 3v3. Time hit 0, just gets off. No reason to do so. It was like he was role-playing being hit by a yokai, but nobody brought echo on the defense.
Was he not covered? Like, was he?
No,
was he?
He was fine. He was fine to keep planting.
He just let go of his F key mid plant with 000.
I mean, it was a 3v3. Positions were like it was possible maybe somebody on G2 could have gotten aggressive and like stopped him from planting. But by no means was he like dead to rights. Like he absolutely should have kept on going. And if his team had covered him properly, they could have won that round. But they threw round number 11, and then round number 12 happened, and like it just seemed like their mental was shot. It was a terrible take to end things out. So it felt like Cloud9 started with a lot of gas, and then it just like went off a cliff towards the end there, which was disappointing for me. Yeah, I do think Cloud9 like played their defenses pretty well. It was pretty aggro, but it worked out for them. The playstyle was good. Just wasn't enough in the end.
This was a matchup that we didn't think at the beginning of the day was going to be as high stakes as it was either, because now with G2 having a loss, CAG having a win, Cloud9 is still needing a win to not secure their overall position, but it would have made things considerably more difficult for CAG to bounce back if they had gotten at least one dub on the day. But this game, for being as close as it was, we didn't really understand how much drama the rest of the play day would have as it unfolded until this game was like already way over and done with. So G2 is probably like sweating bullets that they were able to take advantage of Cloud9 having bad executes in the past couple of rounds of this matchup for them to secure things for themselves. They would obviously go on to have another win later in the day. So, but still, it's like every single win for a team that had such an abysmal performance in the first 2 days counts so much, especially for G2 on their end.
Yeah, this was the game that got G2 out of last, I believe. They didn't secure them out of it, but this was like their most winnable game that they played today, like their easiest game. So if they lost this, like it was a sign that they would get relegated. It wasn't 100%, but it looked like they would be out of the tournament if they lost this game. So glad that Cloud9 threw at the end there. For G2's sake, that is.
No, for real. On the opposite side of the coin, we were also in a battle for who was going to make upper bracket and who was going to make lower, which was a thing for a lot of Latin American teams. We were figuring out if it was going to be FaZe Clan, if it was going to be Team 1, would Furia have a way to get back in there? And this was a lot of where that heart attack came for FaZe Clan was in their game against Team Empire. This was probably one of the best games that I think we have seen from Team Empire in terms of playing as a unit. We've seen people like Dan and Joystick top the leaderboards and from just a score perspective over and over again. But if we pull the standings up, I want to say almost everyone from Team Empire was somebody who had everyone seemed like they were considerably closer, or their cohesion was just way more on point in terms of playing off one another together. If we got those stats, DJ, in a second, it was the best overall team effort from Empire kind of for the whole tournament. FaZe Clan at the very, very beginning of the game throws probably one of the easiest 1v3s you're ever going to have. Post-plant situation, sorry, almost. Was it a post plant? I'm trying to remember if it was, but it turns into Scyther getting a 3K on White Stairs after FaZe goes in and tries to stop a whole push from Big Window. They're stopping everything from every corner of the map, trophy side, attic, wherever it might be coming from, and Scyther still finds 3 kills because it's one of those scenarios where you're up 3-1 as the round is going on, and you just think, oh, we'll throw bodies at this last guy because we want to see which one of us can like get the final kill. It's a classic like gold ranked mistake because you want to find that last frag and you think, oh, we're 3 men up, we're fine. It wasn't fine. Scyther still had to he had to punch some teeth in to get this one down. It was post plan. I appreciate Shaq for clarifying that. But for FaZe, they were chalked pretty early on. It still went the whole 12 rounds, so kudos to them for managing to stay in it. But still, like that throw kind of set the tempo for the rest of the game, and FaZe were fighting from behind the entire rest of the map. And again, it was Empire adapting in a really nice and clean way on attack, which if you had watched Empire from like 2019 Milan or like 2020 Raleigh or something, they would simply win games by being the best team in the lobby. Like whether it be gun skill, base strategy, but in this case, it fed a lot more into counterplay on their side, especially on attack, as FaZe Clan were trying to, mix some things up. Empire were mixing things up in tandem. So it definitely does not look like the same team that we saw from, a year or 2 years ago. I thought it looked really, really well, and they just kept this exact same pace going all day.
I got kind of excited because so far, before today started, Joystick had top fragged in every single game that Empire has played. That includes their team and the opponent's team. And so I looked at Joystick's placement first on the stat sheet, like, Joystick got last. He must not have top fragged. Oh, he did. He might have bottomed the team, but he's still top fragged. Tied it with always. So, I mean, again, Joystick is a bit of a beast. I did look through the stats, and apparently against CYCLOPS, that was the one game that he didn't top frag. So the trend is broken. But
yeah,
still incredible play from him and the rest of the team on Empire. Obviously, they... very happy to get this win again, continue to claim their spot at the very top of the leaderboard, and I think FaZe was a game that was respectably close, but Empire proving to be the better team. It's good to see them back in form again.
There's a really cool stat that I'm going to bring up after we get to Empire's last game in two naps from right now about Joystick. But yeah, this was the one of the only times that we saw Joystick not have the most kills in the lobby, because it happened in that CYCLOPS game, and that was when Joystick dropped like 8 or 9 or something like that, and Dan dropped 20. The man went nuclear. Yeah. That was like the one time that we ever saw him.
He dropped 13, which is good enough for third best in the lobby.
13, my bad. So, I was thinking of the same thing. But yeah, no, that was like the one time where we didn't see him go for it, and he kept pace all of the group stage, but I'll bring up that fact in a hot second. But for everyone here, can you explain how in the hell Dark Zero and Cloud9 went to round 15?
Yeah, so Skies was in the server. I don't know if anybody else from Dark Zero was in the server. I think NJ was 1-8 after most of the game. I think Eclipse was 1-8 at the same rounds that we noticed that NJ was. And I got to watch this with Hot and Cold, which was incredibly insightful. He was awesome. This was the game that I was really excited to watch with him, because obviously it's his former team, and DC would set up for an execute. They'd position themselves in the first 15-20 seconds of the round. Hot would be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is going to be this take. They're going to do that, and that. We came up with this one, and then they would do exactly what Hot and Cold just described. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It did feel like, on that first half, right, Dark Zero started on defense. It was a 3-3 split. It wasn't, I believe, Cafe. Yes, that's what it was. Skies had to get some post-plant clutches. Cloud9 definitely looked like the better team in this. They really didn't deserve to win some of these rounds. You can see that Skies popped off. Hyper as well, I suppose, did good on the stats, but it was just Skies.
It really
saving
was.
So many of these, and you can see NJR and Eclipse, until they got to overtime, were very low on those stat lines. So they were struggling for sure. When they swapped halves, we got to see more of DZ's pushes, and it just felt like I don't know. It felt like they were almost having bad mid-round coordination. And we talked about how there's a lot of pressure on Dark Zero, and how since they are so structured, when they have to make those mid-round adaptations, sometimes things kind of fall apart. In that mid-round, things get kind of crazy, kind of chaotic, and I think that's where Dark Zero was struggling here against Cloud9, who were able to make it a pretty chaotic game, So that was impressive by C9 for sure. I do think on their attack, C9 made a lot of the same mistakes they made against G2 on the map prior. So when they were attacking on Kitchen and they were going top down, they really didn't open very much of the floorboard. They didn't do a great job of forcing people out. A lot of times they weren't doing a great job of identifying where Dark Zero were playing on the bomb site and focusing those positions specifically. They kind of went for the same take multiple times, which just clearly wasn't working. By the time we got to the overtime, though, Dark Zero stepped it up. I think both of Dark Zero's attacks in overtime looked head and shoulders above any other attacks in their half. I think maybe round 8, they had a cool kitchen kitchen take where they smoked down brown stairs and ran into VIP. That was kind of cool. But otherwise, they had a Ying play, which was sick. They attacked onto bar, dropping from skylights. Really cool, really coordinated. Or sorry, yeah. The draw from Skylight was round 15. The Ying play was round 13. So 2 separate rounds here, both on bar attacking. And Dark Zero looked way more coordinated and played way better on their overtime rounds. I don't know why it took so long for them to heat up.
OT pressure.
Skies dragged them to that round. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4 different rounds in the regular time that Skies stole.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, Dark Zero definitely not looking their best, but Skies was on point, and in OT they really did play fantastic.
I didn't really have a pivotal clip pulled up for any reason, though I did have this one, which was just a really nasty shot that I saw hit the subreddit. We stood on round 4. It's Cloud9 also winning this one out. More specifically, I want to say it's Harper as they make a push back inside Freezer. I just thought the shot itself was really good. So DZ's defense ultimately falls apart on this one, but Harper's in Freezer.
Oh yeah,
we'll find more. Pop, and boop.
Yeah, dude. Hip fires him.
Hip fire over sinks. Here, let's see if it cuts back to it. It was just.
Yeah.
Wait for it. Oh, will it not? Oh, I'll do it then. 3, 2, boop. That's just.
Yeah, that was a really good round. And that's another one where, again, like, Cloud9 kind of just, like, flooded sight, and Dark Zero didn't do a whole lot to stop them. So, like, that was another one we were pretty critical of DZ for. But, hats off to Harper. That was a flashy way to end it out, I think.
Yep. From a matchup point of view, this is now Cloud9's 3rd loss overall on the day. Every single game that they had either went 12 rounds or went to max OT.
Tragic.
So Dark Zero now at this point, it's their first game compared to Cloud9's last, whereas C9 are now waiting expectantly to see what G2 and what CYCLOPS do for the rest of the day. Now Dark Zero are also trying to make sure that they're not in contention for it. I don't think they were really that concerned about dropping into dead last the whole time.
Dark Zero were out of it. No, once they won against Cloud9, they were 100% guaranteed safe from relegations.
Good.
But it was already not likely.
So the pressure for them was really more, can we win more of these games and see if it was possible to make an upper bracket run, which is the thing that they fought for the rest of their time. But because Empire and FaZe both had really good days today, it wasn't going to happen overall. But get to that in a second, because this is Empire's last game. It was against Furia. We went back to Coastline, which is a map that we didn't see Empire. I don't think they played since playing Cloud9 on it. Either day 2 or day 1, I forget when that was. I want to say it was day 2. Really good outing overall from Empire. Furia just kind of got caught in a lot of bad crossfires. Empire needed this game to lock in first overall in the group. This was it. If they won this was their last game. They already had tiebreaker over BDS. They needed this win to confirm that they were going to get first place, and they did. So in terms of seeding, that was really the main reason they were playing this. Furia on their own part were still trying to compete with FaZe Clan and with Team 1 to get into an upper bracket position in this game. Had they won, they would have been substantially better than Team 1 now at this point to try to fight for that placement, if I have my stats correct. But they got clubbed in every direction unless your name was Shepard. If we can grab stats, Joystick, Scyther, Always, and Dan looked really, really good. And then there's Shepard in the back playing more support roles. But Joystick, again, like his average is like so many kills per game. It's like, 13, 14, 15, sometimes 20 if he's able to get into that range. And everyone on Fury, you can tell a lot of red sitting in those standings, and their costs more especially in the red was probably a massive issue too, because so much of what Empire were doing relied upon those opening picks, believe it or not. It was the same players getting picked for Empire in both Joystick and Dan, but everyone on Furia didn't really seem like they had a priority on who was going to acquire that first frag. It turned into a lot of highs trying to get aggressive, but he only was 1-1 on entry for his own part. Lenda tried, but he was 1-4, and that already demonstrates that something behind the scenes in terms of Furia's communication was definitely off. And Joystick, here's that one specific stat that I wanted to mention. He finishes the group stage. You're ready for this? He finishes the group stage at 121 kills, which averages to 13 kills per game over 9 games.
Jesus, stop.
13 kills per game.
That's insane, dude. I mean, like, I think it couples from the fact that Empire had a lot of, like, kind of close, really late games. Like, that helps them out, obviously. Having so many games that went to OT or close to OT. But you cannot deny Joystick dragged this team as far as they went, and he is the reason they're first place right now. They would be doing okay without him, but like, man, he is He's the MVP of the group stage, undoubtedly.
100%.
He's going to be in contention for MVP of SI. It'll depend how those later bracket matches go, which will be obviously the most important games. But yeah, that was what a performance from Joystick. This entire bracket stage, he has a lot to be proud of. He hasn't played this good in years.
We've been waiting for him to come back, and I do think I want to correct something that I probably mentioned on a previous show, whether it was here or if it was on a personal stream of mine, I don't totally remember. But somebody asked, I think if it was about the ping difference for Team Empire, and then I went back and I watched some of the video content that Team Empire put out for Stage 1 of the EUL. A big reason for them not being able to contend nearly as much might have been that their ping was hitting like 60 to 70 from where they needed to play for contention in online play. When you put them on land, very clearly Joystick is kind of back to old form. Dan can do what he does best, and it genuinely isn't a problem. But if there was a difference between online and offline play, just for the sake of European Siege, I do think that Empire is very clearly one of those teams. 8th place in the EUL, you know, in contention for that last place spot. We were really worried about them, you know, even making enough SI points for 2022 because of their Stage 1 performance. But today and throughout their entirety of the group stage, they showed up so well. Welcome back, boys. It's been a hot minute.
Very nice to see. And I don't know, there's a lot of people out there saying Empire in the grand finals. I don't know if I'm on the train just yet. I'm a little skeptical because of you know, how kind of carried they seem to be by Joystick. But you know what, this is a team that is going to surprise a lot of people, I feel.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, this one on paper was also a really good game, but at this point the pressure was kind of off for both teams. It was genuinely just for seeding. So Chalet,
yeah, this didn't matter for G2. This was still big for Dark Zero. If they wanted a chance at upper bracket, they had to win this one. It was unlikely, and based on how we know future results went, it actually didn't matter in the end. But at the time, we thought that it did. And so for Dark Zero, they played Chalet against G2. You know, they started on the defense. I'm going to be totally honest with you. The majority of this game, my PC had crashed. So I was trying to set things up. They had some fast rounds from what my chat told me. These were like, there were a couple of rushes going on here. The early rounds I saw and the later rounds I saw, the early rounds definitely were categorized by Dark Zero playing very aggressively. The roamers were really on point. They were all over the map. They played a lot of snowmobile and wine, which I thought was interesting because North America typically hates this map or that bomb site. And they played it really well. Again, on that roam game, you can see Hyper on that Mozzie, NJR on that Mute. They were running that drone denial, Skies on that Valk. They were all over the map, and they were you know, doing a lot to, I think, disrupt G2's pushes before they really got to that bomb site. Then in that in the later game, obviously this went all 14 rounds, very close to maximum overtime. It felt like Dark Zero's pushes were a little bit off, you know, towards that the end there. They did do a good job of countering Clash, which is something that they really struggled with against BDS. Completely different map, so I think the circumstance was quite different, but I thought that I was very happy to see Dark Zero playing better against that that heavy shield play that got brought out one time that I saw from G2. And yeah, it was a lot more roaming again from G2 that worked quite well. The Ying play was a little bit off, I would say, from Dark Zero when they tried to run that. Then we got to overtime, and G2 started with a rush in round 13 that maybe didn't catch Dark Zero off guard, but was still really well executed. And then another strong roam game from G2. So this was a game that, from the rounds I was able to watch, was really won and lost based off of the roamers.
I did have one clip that I thought was good from this one because this game actually it got played on both A and B stream at this time because they took a really long break on Bravo, so I did have a chance to watch some of it. Apologies for the quality because this is coming from Twitter. But we sit in a 4v3. G2 need to find a way to claw, I believe, this entire post plant back, or I don't remember if this was a DZ clutch or a G2 clutch, so we kind of watch it together to figure it out.
Yeah, I did watch this one, and then my PC crashed, and I lost my notes on it, so I'm a little shaky on what happened here too. So it's a good cover overall. Like, it's a really strong post plant spot.
Mid goes down. Two players can still defuse at this point. Oh, it's Virtue by himself. Let's see.
Oh yeah, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What the fuck are they looking at in this round? Hold up. Buddy, come on, Hyper. You know where he is.
Whoa! Look at how low that look at how low that diffuser timer goes.
Yeah. Yeah, the timer gets, like, this is a very close one, but I don't know where the hell Hyper's looking. You should get the call he's in, Jesus, yeah, he is in library, and they just don't look at him for some reason.
Where was he looking?
Like,
yeah, I'm curious now.
Well, because, like, he gets, he kills Eclipse. Eclipse is walking up Fireplace Stairs, and so I think Hyper's looking at Fireplace Stairs, but that's clearly not where Virtue got the kill from. So there, I believe that's miscommunication from Dark Zero. That one, like, hurts, especially with how close, you know, Mint got to get into Disable.
Yeah,
So,
that one got into millisecond territory. That's how little time Virtue has left to pull that one out. So yeah, Hyper looking the wrong way, obviously, but Virtue, you could not have cut that any closer, my dude. Good lord.
Heartbreaker for DZ, that one.
Yeah. So now they lose this one. They're out of upper bracket contention. G2 again, still yes. Kind of sitting okay, but now at this point, this is G2's last game. So good way to go out overall for having a lot of miscues, miscommunications, weird role placements overall, and high expectations, but not being able to really meet any of them. I think for them, this is ideal based on how their first 2 days went. Aside from that massive loss to Team Liquid that was 7-3, bouncing back 7-5 and then 8-6 is a wonderful way to return. Hey, Spawny.
She's here. Hello.
Cat Jam, please. If I could request it, chat, that would be much appreciated.
Cat Jams.
Cat Jams. All right.
What do you have next, Jacob?
I had 2 games. Both of them were Furia, and this was the last game for FaZe Clan in the group stage. We went to Villa. Jaeger ban, kind of interesting, but we saw enough while my play to kind of make up for it. But I did think that just like you're really banning Jaeger, and it's Latin America. That's a handicap for both sides, but it was what it was. This is a game where Bullet had a lot of struggles. He was playing on entry and frags. He had a lot of Ash play, which was something that FaZe Clan were seeming like they were trying to rely a lot on throughout this matchup. But he ended up, if we look at the stats, I think he was dead last overall from a stats point of view. He did not have a really good showing, and that was a big reason for Furia to kind of mount their own potential comeback. FaZe started on defense, had a good half, then went to offense, and when they were on the attack, because they just didn't seem like they weren't working that well. Bullet was 0-3 on entry for his own part. He's trying to find a way to help affect a lot of this map control and work with the rest of his team, but he simply didn't seem like he was really capable of doing it. But overall, this game going to 8-7, don't let this fool you. This was FaZe like the majority of the way. They were better in clutch moments. They were better in post plants. They turned a lot of Furia opening pick rounds upside down, which was probably a massive thing because, again, you see Lenda is trying to carry that torch, so to speak, and most of the entry kills still went to Furia overall, yet we still sit in an 8-7, and a lot of that came from FaZe just kind of shrugging off having the early man disadvantage and being able to force right in. This is kind of interesting if we're looking at how a team can persevere through a game. Latin American teams against other Latin American teams seem like they understand each other's wavelength, so they're not too put off when one of them is getting like behind by a round or two. They're able to push and pull, make a couple of adjustments, and do what they need to do. Against other international opponents, not the same thing. FaZe Clan against Cloud9. Cloud9 is clobbering them. FaZe Clan just tank. CYCLOPS versus Liquid. Liquid very clearly don't know what to do against CAG on console, and they just kind of flub. In this case, it's 8-7 because FaZe and Furia just understood what they needed to do at every twist and turn. I will argue that, looking at the stats, Lenda did have a pretty hard carry, 20-9. But aside from that, everyone on FaZe looked like they were on like a Vulcan mind meld with one another, especially when the pressure came down in OT, and they came away with the win.
Yeah, if both teams were able to like keep their mental up in this game, I think that definitely. I think you probably can lean into that being like FaZe Clan were winning, right? If they were playing better, even if it was close, I think that's probably like a big reason why FaZe were able to keep the mental up. And Furia, again, like every time I look at this team, they're smiling. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they were able to keep their mental up. And even if they were kind of getting slammed by FaZe Clan, everybody except for one player having a really tough time in the server, it's good to see that they're still able to keep up that momentum and keep up their spirits, and I think that does kind of speak like how important the mental game is in Siege.
All right, this game was the last heartbreaker. This is the one I was watching with bated breath. I kind of didn't really want either team to win or lose this game. I was cool with BDS not taking it in this one example. Walk us through it.
So I have a controversy first. Round robin blows, right? BDS, irrelevant game. They could care less. CYCLOPS, this is do or die, right? So this is a really unfortunate situation. This is the worst case scenario for round robin, and I don't think BDS threw this at all. Don't get me wrong. Like BDS, we're gunning. but like they were taking a lot of fights. I would argue that they probably wouldn't be if this game meant more to them. CYCLOPS, like the game they want to play is we're gonna fight you like here, there, and everywhere. And BDS were like, yeah, that sounds like fun. We'll fight you here, there, and everywhere. And this one was a crazy game to watch. It was really fun. Don't get me wrong. This was one of the most fun games I have watched ever in Siege. The way that BDS and CYCLOPS took each other, you know, every single fight.
Very even stats wise too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody was on point, hitting their shots. We started off with, CYCLOPS on defense. They went up 3-0, and I said at the time, like, this isn't BDS throwing. This is just BDS getting into gunfights and CYCLOPS beating them in those fights consistently. But that didn't last forever. BDS did manage to get a couple of attacking rounds. Shiko had an insane 2K over in round number 6. He popped off huge there. Then
I got that 2K.
Sides.
You want to see it real quick?
Really?
Yeah.
The
round number 6 where he pulls a 180.
Yeah, let's see this one, please. Because this one's just like, this is when people in my chat were like, I think BDS is throwing. And then Shiko hits this. I'm like, Shiko's not fucking throwing. Like, come on now. Okay. Let's see.
So, reading defense, 2v2, when Shiro goes for plant and Shiko's off site. Let's see. Oh, whoa.
Fuck, dude. That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, Shiko's, and then we get in the kill feed too. Just hears him behind him, pops
Dear
around, pops
God.
Back. Yeah, he's, they're not playing around here. BDS really did bring it to him. And I do think, like, when they swapped the defensive half, we saw a similar thing, right, where BDS started racking up those kills round after round after round. They did manage to tie it up in that second half, eventually take the lead. Lems had a pretty cool like, 2v1 clutch. Tag brought a lot of like guns on their lineups on attack. Like, you look at this attacker lineup, you got a Twitch, you got a Zoe, you got a Thatcher. No Sledge. Pretty common that they didn't have any soft breach. And for a map like Cafe, feels like a huge mistake from Cloud9. I argue that they probably could have won this game if they brought more operators that worked well up above. Seemed like a couple of times they would try to take up above, but couldn't really do anything with it, which was like pretty disappointing for me to see, because they were trying to. That was particularly what happened in round 15. We got to this very last overtime round, the round to see if CYCLOPS live or die in the tournament. And it's a reading defense. They're able to go up above. They get the man advantage, but they never can fully clear up above. And even if they do clear up above, like, what are they gonna do? Because they just don't have anything to like tear up those floorboards. So they have to like drop. Chat, I feel like people like looked at that round 15, and said, "Oh, CAG throw," because they did lose a 4v3, but they never had positioning in that round. It was a tough one, and I think overall the play from BDS, like in their grand strategy department, did win it out and was the better, the winning element, I'd say, in this game, because both teams popped off on the frags, but ultimately I think BDS just had better setups.
There was something that CAG did in their game against CYCLOPS, which I thought was really cool, and I got one more clip, DJ, if you want to check it out. It was a lot of nitro cell play. I think from CYCLOPS is probably one of their like biggest redeeming qualities, like no matter where it was. I don't know why the feed does this with it every time, but what they had against Empire was some very basic outside Valcam throws that were used for some long arm nitro cells, and we sit at OT match point on this one, and CYCLOPS need to find a way to claw things back to get us to round 15. So what do they end up doing? They find out that there's still a default left up by Empire while they make their approach, and there's 2 kills that happen here in the first 30 seconds. There's the default, just pops the window. He's still on drone at this point. Look at that long arm under Rafal, dude.
Nice.
And then one more kill. Gator finds, I actually don't know where he lands that shot, but still, like, he's on drone, doesn't come off of it even when the window gets popped.
They just don't know.
That's just beautiful, dude. That's such a good play.
Yeah, that's one that, you may be a little upset at your BDS, but again, like, whatever, right? This is a game that doesn't mean anything to them. If they lose it to leaving up a default, well, they'll make a note of that, and it's not going to happen in bracket. So I think it was a good time for BDS to have some fun with this game. They really did feel like they were enjoying the match, and at the end of it, CYCLOPS definitely weren't. There were some tears, and it was a rough game for CAG to lose. But ultimately, I think it was a good final game for CYCLOPS. I think they can be proud of how they played here. I think there are players on this team that are fucking nuts, dude. And yeah, I think it was the perfect ending to CYCLOPS' tournament run, although it was shorter than probably they would have liked.
We could probably touch on this a little bit more after we get through these last 2 games, but CYCLOPS had one of the better improvement runs, I think is a way to call it, because of the way that they played in the first day compared to how they played on the last day. Vast improvement. There were things that got better. It was an 0-3 day to start. They managed to get their first win finally when they were able to defeat Liquid on cons. And then we get to the last day, and they not only win another game against another Latin American team, which we didn't really give them a chance on, but they still took the 2 single best teams in their group, the 2 best teams in Europe at this point, to max point overtime on the same map, no less. Like, a lot of things from one game could carry over to the other and work in tandem, but it just didn't. For them, you should be leaving this tournament with your head held high. Like, you're going to go back into APAC North. You're going to have a lot of things that you can learn from this tournament and correct. But holy hell, you convinced a lot of people that you probably should have been here for the long haul in the playoffs just because of how close that last day was. No shame, boys. Absolutely no shame. All right. My last game, which didn't really end up mattering for much aside from seeding at this point, was Furia DZ. It was my last Oregon game. Furia just straight up said we don't want Blitz. Nothing that DZ can really do about that, but that's kind of where it forced Dark Zero to play a little bit more normally, and this was probably their single most dominant looking win that they've had anywhere so far through the tournament. They looked like themselves pre-NJR, or kind of what you would assume a team with NJR on it playing very aggressive should look like. This is the thing that we want to see more of in the NAL. You're not getting experimental. Your roles are very much like set. Your identity was set in this game. I feel like if DZ can take a lot from how this game transpired and hopefully translate that more to inter-regional success once we get back from France to Vegas. The first time Dark Zero had defeated a Latin American team this entire tournament came in their very last play day. Lenda was having a lot of trouble in an entry role. It almost seemed like Fantasy was trying to take more of that over for himself, but ultimately they couldn't do much. Dark Zero found those opening picks, Hyper topping the scoreboards. It looked like everyone on DZ was firing on all cylinders, to the point that Mint managed to get a positive KD playing Sledge and Miro with a 1.17, and given the roles that we expect him to play on, he's kind of unheard of. I also thought it was a little interesting to see Eclipse be the one to play mostly hard breach, but he was still using it very much kind of in that flank watch capacity for like a lot of the time. It doesn't really matter what op you use to hold flanks, especially considering there was a Nomad ban in this game, and Eclipse probably doesn't want to use an op like Zero on a map like Oregon. You want to use it for I've more traditionally seen it on bigger maps. I could be wrong, because I think just the way that Oregon has more tight corners might not lend itself so much to additional cams. But this was the DZ I hope can do very, very well in best of threes, because it took them a long time to find their form, but they did today against Furia, and they had no real answer.
Yeah, the roles is definitely something that we noticed in their Cloud9 and G2 game as well, where Mint was doing more of the sledging, and we saw Skies and Eclipse doing more of this hard breach, which is interesting. That's definitely an adaptation that we're not used to from Dark Zero. Usually Mint is that hard breach. Skies and Eclipse usually rotate around on that sledge, and they can be kind of flexible on attack there. So that was interesting. The only reason I question you a little bit on the Zero is just because a tidbit that Hot and Cold dropped is that Eclipse is a big fan of Zero. Personally, I agree. I've never really seen it brought on Oregon, so probably fair that they didn't want to rock it on this one. So
I'm never going to discount anything that Hot and Cold says. Absolutely not. But I felt like for this map in particular, you don't see it too much, and if Nomad is gone, you would bring it in some cases, but then again, a Nomad on Oregon is also kind of a mad pick. But then again, I play with a whole bunch of comp friends sometimes, and Ryan to just say, why did I play Nomad on Oregon? But it is what it is.
I like Nomad on Oregon. I think you don't need a Sledge on Oregon, which frees up the space for a Nomad, unless you also want a Buck, so it's kind of complicated.
It's probably true.
But Yeah, I think there are times when it can work, but overall, not a super meaningful game. Dark Zero move up in standings. There was one guy in my chat as we were watching Liquid Team 1 that was very invested in the score between Dark Zero and Furia, and he was a hard DZ fan. He was very happy with this win. Shout out to that guy.
2 wins for DZ overall, and Furia regrettably don't get a single one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Furia still, I think, impressed me this tournament. I want to say, like, overall, maybe not the greatest end, but Furia do make it out of the bracket or out of groups as I hoped that they would. And Furia are a team that I think have a lot of potential in the future. I'm a new fan of Furia. Didn't really know what to think of this team heading into the tournament, but I thought that their play was like pretty solid for the level of team that they are.
All right, one final game for Group A. Take us through it, and then we can talk about standings and then a little bit about how the playoffs are going to look.
So this was a huge game for, what team ended up in the upper bracket. So effectively how this worked out, if Team 1 wins, they got to go to the upper bracket. If Team Liquid wins, then FaZe Clan got to go to the upper bracket. And as you can see, it went very close here between these two squads. We started off with like 4 in a row from Liquid. I thought this was going to be a slam. When I started this, we had a couple of good clutches, like we saw PSK get a 1v1 at the very first round. Nest clutched a 1v3. A lot of these rounds, like it did seem like Team 1 were playing pretty well, but Team Liquid's defenses were just really solid, which isn't something you expect. I think at the very start, some of their pushes could have gotten more control. It seemed like there were a couple of times they'd be going for like maybe a kitchen take, and they wouldn't really take up above, which is very odd. It seemed like it was a little bit of a shortcut taking from Team 1. They didn't want to go for full clears, but they took a timeout after round 4, and their coach gave them a talk, and they went boom, boom, boom. In the next 6 rounds they played after that tactical timeout, they won 5 of them. And it really seems like that turned it around for them. So credit to the coach of Team 1 for making that call. And they started going for real takes where they took a good amount of ground control. They were stopping Liquid from going for those crazy, unnecessary swings that Liquid sometimes like to do, maybe a little bit too often. Their post plant, their plant denial particularly, I think was great on Team 1 when they moved to defense. KDS was insane. I think he had a really good couple of rounds. Round number 9 was really nice. The gunplay he was able to display. Lagonis is nuts. Absolutely, he had some great plays, and in the end, Team Liquid were able to win the last 2 rounds, I believe. Attacking Wine and Games were the 2 sites, and they do come out on top at the end. It felt like a game that was important for Team 1. Like, this was a big one for them, but they weren't too devastated. They knew, like, okay, we're still in this. We still have a good shot. We can be proud of our showing here. I think it's just like if they didn't throw so many rounds at the very beginning, or not throw, but like go for, if they went for better takes in the first couple of rounds, they probably walk away with this one. But unfortunately, they just don't do that.
Yeah, one replay that I wanted to show too here is kind of what you were talking about. Was it a 4-0 skid for Team Liquid at the beginning, or was it 3?
Team Liquid were 4-0, if my notes are correct.
This would then be the round where they go up 4-0, and I think if Team 1 had managed to do better in these first couple of rounds and maybe not allow things like what we're about to see to happen, then it might have been at the very least forced overtime, but you'll kind of see how it goes. This is one of the reasons why we keep on having the debate between Nesk and Paula sometimes as to who's better on Team Liquid, because my God, this man popped off. So KDS, pistols down. Now it's all on Nesk with 3 kills left. 1 in mud. Gonna get the last 2. Down goes Plant. He just stays calm under pressure, and 1 don't have post plant positioning at all. Like, why do you have 1 guy sprinting through mud at that point? Why?
Yeah. I don't know.
So
I feel like it's probably not the right play to like sprint there, but this is like played relatively well by Team 1, I'd say, in this post plant. Like, it's hard to not take 1v1s there. I think the guy in Mudroom is gonna have to take a 1v1 no matter what. Definitely misjudged where Nesk was on that one, so he could have taken it better. But he was kind of forced into a 1v1. Then the other guy like had to wait for his teammate to plant, so he was forced into a 1v1. And KDS had a really good round that round as well. I think he had 3 or 4 kills. And then he was in the 1v1 against Nesk, and we were like, oh, but Nesk shut it down with his own 3K. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff all around from Nesk particularly.
All right, and just like that, I can close the book on Group A. That's it. We are done with this group. We have some might call it the slightly more hyper-competitive group that we have to worry about in Group B tomorrow, simply because of how close those games are. But The long days are done, at least for right now. We don't have to get back up at 3 a.m. collectively until the start of the playoffs, I believe, on Wednesday, because those do start at 3 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time. So we'll get a couple of good days of rest and recovery until then. But DJ, if we can look at standings one more time for Group A, and we can kind of get the overall picture of top 4 and then bottom 5. Because remember the way that we have everything structured because of Wildcard and Virtus.pro not being in Group B, is that Cloud9 are not at the bottom of a 4-team bracket, but a 5-team bracket. CYCLOPS are already gone. Empire, BDS, Liquid, and FaZe Clan have made upper, but Team 1, Dark Zero, Furia, G2, and C9 are all alive, which means we actually already have a matchup set for the playoffs. We have the other 3 in lower bracket that will be all figured out once Group B is said and done with all of its matches tomorrow, but there is a game that's already locked in for playoffs. Furia is awaiting 6th place from Group B. Dark Zero is awaiting 7th place from Group B, and G2 is awaiting 5th place from Group B, so we know who their opponents are, which means the only 2 teams that are currently set for playoffs is Team 1 and Cloud9, the top of the lower bracket and the bottom of the lower bracket in Group A, so that is the only game that we can look forward to until Group B is done. I just thought that was kind of interesting. We're like, oh, yeah, here's one game we know is happening.
Yeah, and this is one as well where just because the groups are lopsided, this is the only game, this is the only initial playoff game which is going to have 2 teams from the same group playing each other in the first round. So what that means is these teams have played each other already. It was the very first game of the tournament on the B stream, which meant, both teams were very fresh. It was on Villa. I watched this game, and it was one that Team 1 slammed in the beginning. Cloud9 pulled back until Team 1 adapted, brought out their classic, their gold standard buck, and pulled out the Villa win there. I believe that one was 7-4. So excited for that rematch. I think Team 1 are favored, but obviously Cloud9 are a team of surprises.
It's true, and obviously the way that the group stage works only tells half of the story. We get the idea of who's best in best of ones. We're going to get best of 3s for all playoffs. So the fact that, we are looking at a rematch means that it could swing the same way, but it could also go deadly wrong in the opposite direction because we have other maps to consider. At the very least, we're playing 2 as opposed to just 1. Same overtime rules will apply. The only time we see infinite overtime is in the grand finals if for some reason we need it. Though simply based on how many games so far have gone to OT just in the group stage, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe we saw 1 infinite OT map in the grand final. We'll get to that as we come to it, but again, only one half of the tale so far has been told through groups, and it's not necessarily conducive to teams doing well in best of 3s either. Like there could be some people that do super hot on their first map, or some teams that sometimes need like a 1 map primer to really get back into it. Maybe sometimes if there's a Latin American team, if they're getting hot and heated and emotional, maybe that second map is where they can find a way to get back into the groove. But I don't know, time will tell.
I think the biggest difference between team or best of 1 and best of 3 is just the map pool. Like being able to ban 3 maps out of the bat is huge. And teams,
best of 1 annihilates the map pool for sure.
Yeah, and so like teams that don't have wide map pools will get exposed once we get to the bracket, and teams that can't play on a large variety of maps are going to have a really tough time. When you look at the standings for Group A, I think they very accurately have ranked how teams played in the group stage. I don't know how accurately they've ranked the actual skill of the teams. I think they've done a decent job at it, but I'm interested to see who jumps up and maybe who falls behind.
This is kind of why I'm a little bit peeved that we have this many teams that it became necessary that we couldn't have a GSL style group or group stage overall that would have had best of 3s involved in it. I don't mind a best of 1 format simply because, I don't mind it from the perspective of getting to see matchups that we probably wouldn't have seen, and for some reason we get every team in the group playing every other team. So like some matches on paper that we might not see until another international event comes around, or like a DreamHack kind of thing, are games that we get to see in a world championship, which is honestly really cool. And from a viewer point of view, I think it's also really cool. But the problem is we don't have an accurate gauge on what the playoffs will look like you mentioned. So I'm lamenting anyone who has to do predictions, namely myself, for the group stage, or sorry, for playoffs, because what we've seen so far is not necessarily conducive to playoff success. With a couple of exceptions, probably not going to be the same.
Yeah. Caliber curse. Okay.
I heard it.
I don't know. I think You're right. And it's like the nice thing as well, if I can take a tangent, is when we go to the APAC or when we go to the APAC teams and Latin American teams, we actually do have best of 3 recent footage on these because they had the Copa Elite 6 and the APAC playoffs. So for some of these teams, we actually do have like a good idea of how they might do in best of 3s. More so Latin America because Giants didn't make it to the Copa Elite 6. Cloud9 played 1 best of 3 at not the Copa Elite 6. Giants didn't make it to the APAC playoffs. Cloud9 played 1 game. CYCLOPS played a ton of best of 3 at the APAC playoffs, but they didn't make it to SI playoffs. So
yep,
mostly it'll be Copa Elite 6. But yeah, it'll be cool to see how the Latin American teams match up.
Well, we can switch gears off of Group A, and we might as well hit predictions for Group B, which I want to say Wikipedia might have been having a little bit of a bug. Yeah. That it said, like, for some reason, like, NIP and Space Station weren't playing one another for some reason, or that there were, like, 10 teams. Yeah, so are one of these wrong? Because we've traditionally had 9 games in Group B. We do have all 10? Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's 5 on each. And then the missing one on Wikipedia was NIP versus Space Station. I think it's cute that ends out the group. I don't know if that was random or if that was intentional, but it's nice that we get the grand final rematches as the final game of the group, sort of the grand finale of the group stage. Might not be an impactful game, but with the way that Group B is right now, every single one of these games looks like an impactful game.
Yeah, agreed. It was the dream rematch that we wanted to see, but in a best of 1, so it's just kind of like PTSD for both teams since they had like the same players on it. But
it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
All right, so a lot of these are going to impact final standings for how Group B shakes out. As it currently stands, just for those who are unaware, it's Parabellum, TSM, NIP, and Space Station currently sitting in top 4 contention, with Giants Makers, MIBR all right now in 5th, 6th, and 7th that would then qualify for lower bracket, and OXG is the team that at the moment sits in elimination contention. But the thing to bear in mind is that 3 teams in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd all have 3 wins, 2 losses, and everyone from 4th to 7th, 4 different teams all have 2 wins. So it's incredibly close. The only real outlier is OXG, who've won 1 and lost 3. So predictions here, the predictions don't matter, but just think about the implications for these guys as we move through these for sure.
Right, and even for that, like, I mean, Auction do look like, you might get worried if you're an Auction fan, but like, Auction play 3 games, and they're all like, winnable games for Auction. So their fate is still 100% in their hands. If Auction win 3 games, they're basically guaranteed like upper bracket, not even just safe, like upper bracket guaranteed. If they win 2 games, it is very likely that they'll be safe from relegations. And if they win 1 game, it'll be kind of up in the air. If they lose all 3 games, they're fucked. But otherwise, like, it's in their hands still. So Auction, while they look bad right now, don't get too down on yourselves. They still have a good opportunity to get out of that last place spot.
Yep, I totally agree. So starting from the top, Makers and Space Station is going to hurt a lot of people, but the fact that they defeated TSM and Space Station they're looking okay, I think, especially in if games go to overtime or they require a lot of extra rounds or it forces SG to mount some sort of comeback, then they can probably do it. But I'm just going to say Makers on matter of principle because I don't know how dominant they're about to be on their last day with 3 games to play. So I'm sorry, Space Station, I love you, but I'll ride the demo Makers train for at least a couple of games through groups for right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are on that Makers train, eh? They really are, they're excited. I know Demo gave the impassioned speech about how they're just like Forz, they're this team, they're going to pop off. I don't buy it. I think Makers play has been okay, not bad. It's all right. They're better than Parabellum looked on day 1, but I don't think this team is that amazing. They did beat TSM, but I think Space Station will be able to take them down. I think that TSM game was a little bit of a fluke. That's just my opinion. So I think Space Station win this one. I'm not that high on Makers. I don't think they're the god team that some people are hyping them up to be. Demo.
Yep. Only mentioning Demo in the subtweet on this one. All right, Giants MIBR. What's your take?
Giants MIBR. So I talked about before how I was going to predict that Giants lose everything. I don't know if I'm going to keep that, but I think MIBR are the strongest team in this group, maybe besides TSM or Space Station, but MIBR look really good in my mind. I know they've had bad games, but every team has had bad games in this group. I really like the way that MIBR plays. I'm going to take them over Giants, I think.
Yeah, for Giants, I'm not really confident that they can have the same, I guess, level of success that they might be able to find against teams like TSM. When it comes to Latin America, the two styles are so differently contrasted that it would probably require a miracle for a Brazilian team to lose to a team that currently resides in APAC South. So I'll go MIBR as well. In my head, it simply does not line up if Giants somehow win. I'm cool with the upset. Don't get me wrong. I like rooting for the underdogs, but in this case, no.
I do think Giants' playstyle is very different from Cloud9 or CYCLOPS. I don't think it makes sense to think of Giants as like
for
an
sure,
APAC team. They play more similar like the way NA likes to play the game, but I think the regional differences have definitely trended towards LATAM in that matchup for sure.
Yep, and they already have one loss to NIP so far in this group, so if they were to go 0 for 2 on 2 different Latin American games, to me, it would make perfect sense.
Yeah.
OXG makers, I do consider OXG to be the weakest NA team, not just because of the records, but because something is not gelling, probably with their 2 new additions in an international LAN environment. But I'm actually going to hope that in this case, the overall experience from everyone else on that team, plus their 2 new additions, can override what makers are trying to do by smashing through the whole bracket. This might be a really bad pick simply because of where they sit, but I'm putting all my hope in OXG that they can do something and do like just avoid getting last place, dudes. That's all I want. Do not pull a fast one and get 7th place in Group B. I beg you, and it requires beating makers to help get them there.
Yep. I think, again, I'm not super high on makers. I gotta believe Auction will play better than they have. I know Auction are a better team than how they've been playing. Right now, like, with how they've been playing, yeah, they look like one of the worst teams in the group. But, I don't think they're going to continue with that trend. They've had some very good rounds, and with their play in the NAL, I gotta believe they're going to pull that out. I've seen much better play from Auction than I've ever seen from makers, so I'm going to go Auction as well.
All right, in your mind, does MIBR get their second win of the day, or does Parabellum go 4-0 through 4 games? What do you think?
Well, Parabellum with 3 wins are very likely safe, not guaranteed, but they're very likely not getting relegated. So, I don't... I'm picking MIBR here because I just don't think that they're gonna be able to get too many more than that. And I'm happy if they lose out, I'm not gonna be heartbroken, right? So I can feel kind of okay predicting against Parabellum because they are probably already safe. They did well enough on day 2 that they can afford to lose these games. So I'll take MIBR.
If I had to pick either of the 2 games for Parabellum to get a win in, I do think it would probably be against MIBR, just because I think I like the matchup a little bit more even on paper, where TSM could probably eke out the win against them. But for this game in particular, the fact that NIP have already lost to Parabellum gives me hope that MIBR probably won't go back and make the same kind of mistakes again, and they can probably pace themselves a little bit differently, and also not play Clubhouse. So I think MIBR can also probably win this one for sure, and it doesn't really affect Parabellum's standing that much either.
Yeah.
In the terms of OXG versus Space Station, remind me which one of these 2 teams won in Stage 1 of the NAL. I'm trying my best to remember.
Oh, it had to be Oxygen.
I think Chalet,
Oxygen.
right?
I don't know about the map. Chalet sounds right. No, it does it. I don't know that Auction played Chalet very much, if at all, in the NAL, actually.
I remember that there was one big game Relaxing popped off, but I don't remember if that was against TSM or if that was SSG.
They did play Chalet. I mean, I have a Liquipedia. I can go figure this out.
Yeah, so I mean, in this case, the team with Luke is different than the team with Troy, and the team with Troy is looking pretty good against like people internationally.
7-8 Oregon, by the way.
That's the one that was. Got it. So the Chalet game was a different one. In my mind, though, this probably is SSG, solely based on the idea that Lycan can probably counterstrat better with a new player coming back to a roster than OXG can plan on a player coming back into a lineup and seeing how things get rearranged. So I'll take Space Station.
This is kind of out on a limb, but I think Oxygen are my pick for this one. They did win the regular season. It was extremely close. But I think with Space Station just being still a little bit new with Troy, I'm less confident with them. And I think, again, a lot of Oxygen's issues have been, maybe mental based, right? And I think playing a North American team, getting back into this groove, they've done this before. They know Space Station, right? So I feel like there's less to get in their own heads about. It will be a high pressure match, right? Because they don't want to get last. But if they can beat Makers, then they're no longer in that dead last position. I'm gonna take OXG here.
All right, Parabellum TSM. I'll let you go first because I did go first on the last one.
Again, I think Parabellum are safe if they lose both of these games. So my heart can take it. So I'll take TSM. I think it's the smart pick. I like Parabellum. I will clap for them every time that they win. I'll be rooting for them, but it's TSM. Come on now.
I need to go TSM here too, not simply because I don't think Parabellum can go toe-to-toe, blow for blow with the team that won the November major. But in my mind, the issue here is that TSM need a very strong 2 games to get like first or second in their group and also prove that Group B, which has been this competitive so far, they're able to get out in front. They some NA team needs to show a dominant streak, and I don't have Parabellum really filling that role in the long term. I think TSM can probably do it, and if they do it by beating Parabellum and then beating NIP later, that looks far better, and they absolutely have the capacity to do it. So I'll take TSM as well.
I remember looking at the group stage and thinking, you know what? There's a chance that Parabellum are the only North American team that makes it out in upper bracket, which would be something. I don't think that's gonna happen, but like, it might.
We're over here sweating and hoping that one of our boys finally goes all the way. Yeah, for sure.
Listen, if it's gonna be Parabellum that win SI for for North America, I'm not gonna complain. I'm just thinking we might have better odds if TSM also get into that upper bracket too, please.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Makers and MIBR. Oh boy. I think I'm going to give MIBR 3 wins. I do agree with you that they look incredibly strong just by comparison to the rest of the group. And it's just one of those things where a Latin American team clashing up against a team like a 5-stack of Italian gunners is a nice idea in principle, but overall, this still seems like an MIBR win to me.
There were a lot of people in my chat today talking about, MIBR, they're in 7th right now. They might not actually do very well, but I really think they're one of the best teams in this group. I don't think the 7th place they currently sit in is a good representation of this team's skill. Again, I'm not huge on Makers. I think they're all right. I don't think they're going to get relegated. Well, they might actually, based on the predictions I've given them so far. They are in that area, so maybe. But MIBR, I think, will win this one out. I think they will topple Makers, and that's my prediction.
Okay, Daye, TSM NIP. Last time we saw this was the lower bracket final of SI 2020. So before we get to the rematch of the grand final, we got to do the one for lower bracket, and TSM lost that game. But do they take this one?
I don't know. I think NIP have been winning, and I can't deny that. And it doesn't instill me with confidence for TSM because their results haven't been fantastic. But again, like the way NIP play the game just doesn't make sense in my brain. It doesn't feel like it should be working. This is NA bias, not because I like TSM, but because I don't understand NIP's playstyle. Could get egg on my face here, but I'm going to go TSM because on paper and just watching them play, they look so much better than NIP. But NIP has found better success, I would say, than TSM have. So who knows?
Apologies if we're getting a little bit of weird stream lag on our end. Hopefully everything is all good, though I do see chat and we probably have a little bit more of a delay going on our side, so we'll see if that's a big issue, but hopefully we should be okay. I do agree. I like TSM's playstyle overall more than NIP's. There's only so much that you can do off of individual plays. As much as I appreciate what NIP have helped contribute to Brazil and to the rest of Siege as a whole for what one fragger is capable of doing by themselves, but on a team of fraggers no less, and see how much of a unit they can construct themselves into. I like NIP as a squad, but it's so inconsistent so far through groups. The teams that they've already played against include Giants, who they won, because I think Giants had a very, very off day to start the group stage, lost to MIBR in overtime, got dumpstered by Parabellum, and then beat OXG, so it's not very consistent no matter where they play. Though that inconsistency might be enough to kind of douse TSM in their own fire, because they do like to play more structured, and even though TSM are a team of gunners, that's the exact reason why NIP were able to defeat them at SI 2020 in the first place. So I'll go NIP, even if my words come back to bite me. Something about this just seems like the Brazilians are going to win it out.
Yeah, moving on to this next one. This is one that I've been worried about, because I think I missed the mark on Giants. I don't think I saw enough of them in the regular season to accurately understand where they're at. They've been kind of all over the place. They've had bad games. Again, like from what I've watched, I thought their game against Makers was incredibly scrappy. I wasn't a fan, but their game against TSM was good. I think this team is better than I was giving them credit for at the very start. I am going to take them over Oxygen here. I think Oxygen's play has been significantly worse than Giants, and while I did give Oxygen the benefit of the doubt on their last two matchups, I think Giants might be better than their last two opponents, which is a shock to me. But I think I've been liking Giants so far. I don't know. Their game over TSM really impressed me, and so maybe I'll get all of these games wrong, but I think this is probably where Auctions slip up and Giants come out with a win.
You know what? I actually agree with you in this case. This is a matchup that solely because of the teams involved and the way that Giants have played dissimilar to the rest of APAC and knowing how OXG play, it makes it incredibly intriguing to know how it will go. But if this is OXG under pressure, Giants are probably still going to be fighting to make sure they don't get knocked out in groups at this point. And I think they could probably use a little bit of that momentum, and OXG might be down to the dumps, especially if they lose to SSG in the second game of the day, like I've got them going. So I did like Giants. If they do what they did against TSM, they're going to defeat OXG. So let's see if they can do it again. All right,
then the
one
big
more.
One. The big one, Jacob.
Okay. We're both going to come up with an answer, and we're both going to say it at the exact same time on 3. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. SSG.
The Hammer guys. Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Same thing.
Same team. We got it. All right, sweet.
Yeah, I think Space Station again, like, NIP just confused me, dude. NIP as a North American analyst, as somebody who understands the meta from a North American perspective, NIP doesn't make sense. They don't look like a team that should be winning. They are winning, but I don't see how it's sustainable. Maybe I just need to open my mind a little bit wider to the, to the sniper and the Collie and the Glass and the Monty, but I'm not there yet. So I'm still going Space Station. Maybe if they win both these games against North America's best, I'll change my mind, but I'm not there yet.
All right, well, someone can go ahead and screenshot this and put it on Twitter. I don't think either of us are really going to be doing it, so have fun. 3, 2, 1. All right, we're good. Chat. Now it's your time. We're going to keep this one a little bit shorter than we have in Q&As previous to this, and if we have a little bit of stream stuttering, then maybe it'll make it a little bit more awkward. But now it's your chance. Give us some questions. Let us know what you think. Anything about Group Stage Day 5 that you specifically want to ask us, feel free. I know we are a little bit behind on stream, but throw it your way. What do you guys got? Anything you want clarified?
Damn those pencil tricks, Jesse. Dude, I used to do these all the time. I don't know why I stopped. It's very simple. It's just going around my middle finger. It's very fun. I like to do these.
It looks more complex than it probably is.
It looks way more complex than it is. It's super easy.
Which is why it looks like infinitely more impressive.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are TSM and Parabellum safe for being out of top 4? Safe from being out of top 4? Like in terms of being bottom 3? I don't think so.
I think so. Mathematically, TSM, Parabellum, and NIP, the teams with 3 wins, could get relegated. But realistically, it's not going to happen. I think when you look at the standings for Group B, 3 wins is very likely to be enough. If you can get to 3, you're probably okay. If you're at 2, that's where you're worried. There will probably be, at the end of the final day, there will probably be 1 or 2 teams with 2 wins. And those are the teams that are obviously, going to be in danger of getting relegated. So I think the goalpost for most of these teams will be 3 wins. It's possible that 3 wins won't be enough, but that's a very unlikely scenario.
If teams were to get to 4 wins of the ones who currently have 3, do you think that's kind of enough of a buffer? Or
4 wins are mathematically guaranteed. Like 3 wins, I think, is enough of a buffer. I don't think you're worried if you're at 3 wins, but like 4 wins mathematically, it's impossible, I believe.
All right, then. You heard it from the math whiz himself. Thank you for doing the calc, so I didn't have to.
Now, the difference between top 4 and lower bracket is more complicated. It's going to really depend on how the games go. Like, 3 games might be enough. Tiebreakers are going to be important. 4 games would be nice. 5 games are probably what you're looking to be safe in top 4.
Yeah.
So, for those asking what do you need to do to stay in upper bracket, that's hard to say.
Let's see what we got. Are you sad to see CAG go when they beat the 3rd place team and almost beat 1 and 2? I am a little bit sad just because of their last day. Yeah. With Cloud9 not winning any games and CAG coming as close as they did, 2 rounds away from maybe securing themselves a better position, like 1 round in 2 separate games, and instead it ends in heartbreak. Yeah, of course I'm sad about that.
I do think CYCLOPS were the worst team in Group A. Based on how they played in groups, I think they were the worst team playing in Group A. So I think if any, it had to be somebody, I think it makes sense for it to be CYCLOPS. But I think any team losing out in that manner, maximum OT is sad. And it broke my heart when I watched that game.
Yeah, seriously. Will BDS take it? Probably.
Which group is stronger? I think is very clearly Group A. The top of Group A looks like they could slam anybody in Group B based on how they're playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not good because the top of Group A is all European, and I'm not about that.
Let's see what we've got going elsewhere. CAG also showed the most improvement. I think CAG showed a lot of very good improvement in a very short space of time, but they got absolutely cucked by having the single hardest schedule of any team to overcome probably on the last day. Like if you have BDS and Empire, then that will stop you in your tracks no matter how much momentum you're building behind you. But yeah, I think their improvement is a very good sign of things to come for them through the rest of APAC North, just not internationally yet. Who was your biggest disappointment from Group A?
That's fun.
I kind of like this question, actually. Yeah.
Honestly, CYCLOPS. I thought CYCLOPS would upset some motherfuckers. I thought their weird style of play would really take the rug out from some of the group's top teams, and they didn't at all. They did get 2 wins, but I thought they would be doing a lot better than. I don't know. I thought they'd be able to close out more than they had, I suppose. They did play well, though, at the end.
Before SI started, who was the team that you had going out in Group A? Was it CAG? Because I had CAG.
It was Cloud9.
Wow.
I was 1 round away from sending a snarky tweet to Dev Marta, but that didn't happen.
For me, a part of me wants to say Dark Zero, not just because they ended up 2 places below where I thought they were going to. Didn't make upper bracket, though I don't really think that's necessarily their fault because Team 1 surprised and Empire obviously surprised. But for me, it's probably G2. I didn't think upper bracket was a possibility, though I do believe that the players on this squad are better than that individual record really gives them credit for. And I'm going to hope that it's not anything to do with Kayak because they needed somebody who was doing IGL work and on support. But then we learned later from demo 2 days ago that it's actually Uno who's playing in the IGL role for that team. And since making that kind of shift, it seems like things are off with especially how far away they're playing from the bomb site. Go back to any game that they played, against FaZe 7-2, against BDS 7-1, a lot of these games that they didn't keep very close were ones that were utter blowouts, down to a lot of the way that they decided to spread themselves out on defense, a lot of their late game decision making. And that's not the thing that I expect from a team that has a world champion on it in Cantor Aketi, some incredibly talented fraggers on it, and Shas as head coach. So yeah, that was my biggest disappointment overall was 100% G2.
I'm gonna answer this one quick because we answered it yesterday. Why is TSM second right now when they have a better round differential than Parabellum? The first tiebreaker that comes into effect for the three-way tie between Parabellum, TSM, and Ninjas in Pajamas is the mini league. Parabellum are 1-0 in the mini league. TSM are 0-0 in the mini league. NIP are 0-1 in the mini league.
Why Reaper's predictions about NA were wrong when they don't look ahead on strategy? Not 100% certain what you're asking there, Danny, though to be fair, anyone doing predictions before we started SI was bound to be wrong in multiple ways regardless. So I will admit that for my part, I did put a fair amount of North American teams within the upper bracket simply because I didn't think that enough of them were bad enough to justify a lot of them being lower bracket contenders.
Right.
But they only had 5 participants going this year, and I only put 3 of them into upper bracket. So
right.
At the end of the day, we might only see 2 if only 2 of them make upper bracket from Group B tomorrow. So we'll find out.
I think for like people who look at the game very much like from an on paper perspective, and this includes Reaper and this includes myself, North America's playstyle, well, and Jacob, but I feel like you see the game more as better than perhaps me and Reaper do, because like you look at the game, and it's like North America's playstyle is very based on utility, right?
Yeah.
So like when you look at it from a perspective of like almost like a chess game, right? North America seems like they have it more figured out. Their takes or their setups are maybe more complex. Their takes maybe deal with that complexity a little bit better. So I think on paper, North America plays the game better than any other region. But the game's not played on paper, right? And I think sometimes, although the takes from Latin America, for example, look sloppier and have holes in them, it's very hard in reality to punish those holes, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to actually make the Latin American playstyle fall apart, even though theoretically it should be doing worse than theoretically it is less it's got more flaws than the North American playstyle. The NA playstyle just doesn't hold up to the fast-paced style of playing the game that Latin America maybe does. With that said, we haven't seen a lot of NA versus LATAM because of the way the groups were made.
Right.
So, we'll see what happens in bracket.
The fact that we had 1 North American team going up against 4 LATAM teams and only got 1 win, I do think is conducive to Latin America's playstyle simply being something that one particular NA team simply could not counter. Yeah, if you put TSM or maybe even SSG, perhaps even OXG into that group as opposed to DZ, then maybe we see a different upper bracket result for North America. That's more of a DZ specific issue than it is like an NA specific issue, even though NA are a bunch of nerds for the way that we play the game, because it has that strategy. It's very deep in terms of how far it can go from counter strats and how much time you take to prepare. I think more so than Europe, I would call NA the nerdy region. NA are nerds, EU is passive, LATAM is aggro, and then APAC is gigabrain. So that's it's a very oversimplified way of putting it, but it does kind of feel to me that the way North America has things structured theoretically means they should be coming out on top, but then you can't not factor in what every other region is doing at the same time. So
okay, I need to expand on one of my answers because all of chat is confused. So a mini league chat is if you have a 3-way tie, right? Parabellum, TSM, NIP, they are all tied for 3 points. A mini league is when you only take into consideration the games between those teams in the tie. So you only look at matches between Parabellum, TSM, and NIP. Right now, because the season or the stage hasn't finished, or the group stage hasn't finished, the only time those teams have played each other was Parabellum versus NIP, and Parabellum won it. So in the mini league, which is just looking at the games that these teams played amongst themselves, Parabellum have 1 win, and TSM have 0 games played, and NIP have 1 loss, meaning Parabellum are currently in first, but that's only because games haven't been played yet. Don't worry too much about it. This will work out, it'll work itself out when we get the group finished.
Yeah, mini league applications aren't something that apply once all games are done, because then you're simply looking at the teams head to head and where they placed, how many wins that they've got, right? Or does mini league have potential applications even after all games are finished because of that tiebreaker?
Yeah, mini leagues almost mattered. If Liquid had beaten, or if Liquid had lost to Team 1, we'd have a crazy mini league going on actually to determine who gets who gets the 4th spot in Group A. But yeah, anytime you have a 3-way tie, anytime you have a more than 2-way tie, there's mini league applications. So let's say you have a 3-way tie, A defeats B, B defeats C, and C defeats A, for example. You get into like a crazy mini league, even if it's not that, right?
Right.
It's basically just an extended version of head-to-head.
Which did look pretty ridiculous yesterday, by the way. We had a whole bunch of teams that were like 2-2, all at like the exact same time. It was like 6 teams in that mini league for a couple of hours. Looked like insane until more games were won or lost and teams kind of dropped in and out of contention. So now the way that the tiebreaker is set is based upon how those records are similar to one another. But yeah, it's one of those things that you really don't have to pay that much attention to. It's just bear in mind that placements with teams that do have the same record are based on, 1 to 2 different kinds of tiebreakers so far.
For sure.
All right, you want to find one more good one and then we'll get out of here?
Yeah. Let's see. Chat, post some questions.
Give us a good ones. My voice also for some reason feels higher than it usually is supposed to be. Like anymore. I need to get some water after this.
Who do you think will retire next? Caliber Jacob. He's going to Valorant.
Wrong. Apex Legends, but yeah, I'm retiring next.
Oh, my bad. You're jumping for the new mode, right?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. 100%.
Gotcha.
How will playoffs be split? Okay, this one actually does lead into playoffs, which I don't mind answering. So, playoffs are going to be done pretty simply. The top 4 teams from both groups are put into an upper bracket system, but they will not be facing the same teams in their group for their first set of matches. So it'll be Team 1, BDS, Team Liquid, and FaZe Clan against whoever the top 4 is from Group B, and they will all be split up accordingly. So if I pull the playoff page up here, none of them have any matchups set. It's going to be FaZe Clan facing the number 1 team from Group B because they have the number 4 seed coming out of Group A. Team Empire will face the 3rd place team from Group B. Team Liquid plays the 2nd place team, and BDS play the 4th place team. So based on that seeding, you already in Group B are going to have an understanding of who you face in your first upper bracket round. And the same can also be said for the 3 teams coming out of Group B because there are 3 more spots to fill in playoffs because 5 of them made it from Group A. So Team 1 Cloud9 is a game we already know is happening because 5 teams coming in from Group A means we have to have one matchup that is already set. But Furia faced the 6th place team, Dark Zero faced the 7th place team, and G2 faced the 5th place team. So you factor all of that stuff in, the way that all of the seeding works is typically like the bottom of a group or like an upper bracket setting, then faces like the bottom team of a lower bracket setting, and then vice versa. Yeah. It's all on Wikipedia if it sounds a little bit confusing, but the whole point is that for Group B, you now have an idea of who you're going to who you'll play based on your placements so far, just through your last couple of games tomorrow.
Yes. And then something to kind of just expand on that, somebody asked, is lower bracket still 2 losses for elimination? No, if you finish the group stage and you start in the lower bracket, you have 1 life, right? If you lose, you're done because you're in the lower bracket. If you got top 4 in your group, you can lose twice, because if you lose the first time, then you go to the lower bracket. Anybody who loses in the lower bracket is donezo. That's it.
All right. A lot of implications and stuff that is on the line for Group B. Jesse, any final thoughts before we get the heck out of Dodge today?
Group B is going to be crazy, dude. Altiora are going to top the group, and I'm excited to see it.
Who's Altiora?
Parabellum are going to top the group. I'm excited to see it.
Oh my god, that's a name we haven't heard forever.
I woke up at 2 in the morning. Come on, man.
We all did. I was up at like 1, then took a nap, and I don't know how I managed to do that. Yeah, Who's Altior? Anyway, all right. Twitch.tv/JesseJ Chick for his stream tomorrow. You didn't even bother showing your own stuff, so go ahead and chill it yourself. Pop it in chat while we end things up here. Do you have any guests for tomorrow?
I sure do. Christian Guerra, head coach of Mirage, going to be joining me tomorrow to check out the games we're going to be bot reviewing and watching the final matches to close out the day. And it'll be kind of short, starting a bit earlier, which thank God for that.
We both have 5 games that we got to get through, so it's going to be 10 as opposed to 9, which is really, really good. Go follow his channel if you want the live analysis as it goes on. But for Jesse and myself, One more group stage still has yet to be played, or one more day of the group stage to go through. Then we have 2 days off, and then we have the entirety of the best of 3 single or double elimination playoffs, depending on where teams place. And there's still so much more stuff I got to cover. My heart cannot emotionally take having to knock out all of these teams over the next couple of days. But SI, at this point, the grand final is just about a week away. For Jesse and for me and for DJ, we'll see you tomorrow for the end of the groups.